This is Surviving Survivor.
I hope everyone had a good Mother's Day, but for Survivor fans, our Mother's Day was ruined because our one and true mother, Suri Fields, was voted off. Thank you for listening and watching Surviving Survivor. I'm Emily McGlynn here with my wonderful friends and co-hosts Jack Freiser and Abby Tarpey. Oh my gosh. I'm just so used to rolling it off the tongue that I got tripped up.
It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. How are we feeling, guys? I think this is probably the most dramatic Twitter week we've ever had.
I am feeling good outside of the game. Game-wise, this episode sucked. It was predictable. There wasn't really a lot of excitement, and we lost the two players who were doing the most.
But the rise of Aubrey is unlike none other that I've also been predicting for a while and could be the sign of my first draft win. So I
hope so.
completely
I don't see a world where she loses at this point.
I think that my pick of Camilla, unfortunately, is testing the waters because other people. I'm the only person with two people left. But if Aubrey and Joe were immediately voted out, I would lose. So we don't exactly know. A.
I think you win. I think it's safe to say.
And B, I don't want to set myself up to assume that this could be my first win. But I am biased and think this was a great episode.
I just think it's fucking hysterical to go from the beginning of the episode of Aubrey just getting two confessionals out of nowhere being like, this was my idea, I did it. Jonathan thinks it was his, but this was all me. And then in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the episode, she's like, yeah, you know, like, I'm just in a great position right now, and I'm doing everything right. And they're just giving her all of these reasons of like, no, guys, she's playing good. And why didn't we not see that throughout the season? This is no hate on Aubrey. I think Aubrey clearly played a good game. For being able to be on the bottom going into the merge and make it through is impressive. But they focused the entirety of her pre-merge being a Debbie Downer and her and Genevieve having this beef that for some reason they made Genevieve this hugely favorable icon and they were bashing down Aubrey just for it to end in a very unceremonious manner, not really give Aubrey credit for Genevieve going, and then move on to this merge in which she's completely discredited for bigger personalities just for her to be at the end and now getting confessionals. Like, she is one of the most under-edited players of the season. And her and Tiffany. And the fact that Tiffany is in the final five after having a huge moment this week, having 3 episodes in a row where she got 0 confessionals. I just think the editing has been piss poor. And it's like, I understand you have some legends and you want to show your Cerise, you want to show your Aussies, you want to show your Rick Devons, but it doesn't matter. You want to tell a through line. And the fact that Aussie gets voted off without Suri even being there, and then Suri gets voted off because Tiffany won a challenge, then show Tiffany more. Make it more like, okay, we're rooting for Tiffany. We're happy she won this challenge. Or show what Aubrey's doing throughout the season. We did not get her POV, and now she's going to win. And we've gotten so much of her bashing Michelle's game these last few weeks. Or not bashing, but being like, I'm finally understanding it, and I didn't get it, I don't really get it, but she won, whatever. I'm going to kind of do that, and thinking about who I can be in the end with. And one of the reasons that Michelle was an unfavorable winner was because of the edit. And they're doing the same fucking thing again with Aubrey, but even worse, in my opinion, of showing pretty much no strategy until now. And even so, it's like, last week, they made Jonathan seem like the real person doing all of the Aussie stuff, because he had the idea to go out to get Aussie out before he even talked to Aubrey. So it's like, you're showing all of this stuff. Sorry, I'm ranting. I am just like not happy with the editing right now. And I think it's going to make for a meh winner. When in reality, this is her 4th time playing. She has made it to 3 finales. She is a great player of the game, and she is a deserving winner. So show us that. Show us the legend that she is. Don't show us her complaining and being like, and not really getting to see her strategy.
I think that was the best rant of this season. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that's something that a lot of us have expressed bit by bit every week that we've been reviewing and talking about these episodes of like, what the heck is this edit? Why are they approaching this season this way? But also, why had they been approaching the seasons like this the past couple of seasons? It doesn't make sense. I think I would go as far to say as the producers really want someone to win and they have their favorites or they show the most clip-worthy moments or the most entertaining moments, but they're forgetting that people like to watch Survivor for the nerdy strategy, for the being a beast in the challenges and the little like bits and pieces. Yes, we like the personality, we like seeing who they are as people, but you've got to balance it out. I I'm okay to admit this on the podcast, which is funny because I haven't we host an entire podcast about Survivor. I've never seen any of Aubrey's seasons before this. And so I now feel awful because of how high you guys praise her. And I had a lot of expectations going into the season, be like, okay, a lot of people love her. Why? And I wasn't really understanding until only a couple weeks ago or a couple episodes ago where she really was playing and she was really proving herself. She might not be like the best challenge beast or whatever, but she's outlasting and she's outplaying a lot of people. So not outplaying, but outwitting and outlasting a lot of people and going under the radar, which is something that they all have been so concerned about, but they haven't had their eyes on the right person. Speaking of playing in the middle, I know we haven't even talked about the people being voted off yet, but I still kind of want to talk about the people that are still playing this game. I am sick and tired of the people like Joe and Jonathan sticking around. I understand why they do it. It's easy. They know they're not going to get any votes. You know that they're going to be loyal with you all the way. And whatever. I still would argue that maybe Jonathan has a chance depending who he's with. But like the entire 40s has been that, where there's been like one or two people that just clearly do not deserve to be there whatsoever. I miss the times where there were three strong, solid people up there and you going to the live reunion or whatever, not knowing who it's going to be. So if it's going to be an Aubrey, Joe, and Jonathan, like maybe it might be split between Aubrey and Jonathan. But even then, I still feel like Aubrey's going to get majority of the votes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's the problem when you do a season like this and you have some of the most iconic players to ever play and then somebody who just played the show, who hasn't really done a lot, who isn't going to be that memorable, is because, yeah, I want to sit next to Joe. 100% put me next to Joe. Oh my God, that is the easiest $2 million of my life. He's going to talk about his honor and integrity, and then all of the jury are going to be like, well, why did you vote me out then after telling me you didn't? We wouldn't want to. Because he's been playing this honorable game without actually being honorable and also having no strategy. So I totally understand it, but it's the same thing that happened with like Troyzan and Brad Culpepper making it to the end of Game Changers. They were never going to win, especially Troyzan. It's like when you pick all of the legends and then some people that are just returning players that aren't as iconic as others, like you're not going to get a Suri Fields at the end because you're going to always lose to her. And so, like, I understand to a degree why Rizzo did what Rizzo did, and I know Abby will also comment on this, he did it in a poor manner of jury management, again, I agree with what Aubrey was saying when they were thinking about, when Tiffany's like, let's just flush out Rizzo's idol and keep Rick. No. Rizzo is not going to win at the end. Rick is 100% would beat me right now. He's done these flashy moves. He's been a clear threat. He knows how to talk and public speak. So it makes sense. Rizzo is over here betraying his two number ones and being this like goofy little guy that, oh, I don't think I want that to be my season 50 winner representation. So I think I understand why it happens, but I agree it makes it boring in the end, where it's like we lost our iconic players early on. We lost the rest of them now in this week, and now we're left with five people, with Aubrey clearly being the only one of the five that is actually a good, like, knows kind of what the fuck they're doing right now and knows how to make it to the end and has already done it before and was one vote away last time. And it's like, it's ridiculous that one last thing, and then I'll be done with this whole edit thing. But Christian and Ozzy had almost double the amount of confessionals Aubrey has had this entire season. And Aubrey has had 15 more confessionals than Genevieve. Think about how long Genevieve has been out of this season. She has 15 more confessionals. That is less confessionals than Q and Mike had in their 3 and 4 episodes in
That's
between.
crazy.
Like, it's just I don't get it.
I can understand an element though of we watch the show in an analytical way and we talk about the edit often. So we've watched so much Survivor and reality television in general that we would be aware they're showing too much of Suri and they're showing why Suri should win, but then they do start to show her failures, which I will get into. I feel like it's more so she got kind of twisted into failing, which is kind of Ozzy's fault. Um, but you couldn't show so much Aubrey that it makes you question, not be able to question who the winner is and prove that it's her winning. I agree, though, that I think they take it a line too far, where someone on Twitter, who I don't remember who it was, said that every time a woman wins, they feel like they show why the men lose instead of the women winning. And while that's not a one-to-one with gender every single time, I think that someone like Aubrey did get co-wronged, and they do that format often, and I understand why they do it to some extent because they're going for the most entertainment value, not the most documentary, um, beat by beat what happens on the island. So if Aubrey doesn't have interesting confessionals, she's not going to be shown saying things that other people say in a more unique way. Where I'm upset for her, and but more so Suri. While I agree that the edit plays into a lot of how they're perceived publicly, that doesn't affect the game because they haven't been edited yet. I think that various people have been kind of screwed over by the twists that fans supposedly voted for. Because I've been riding home for Aubrey since the beginning. I'm happy we're getting Ko-Rong, Aubrey style of play, even if we're not seeing much of it, and that she's kind of living up to like my childhood version of her. But someone like Suri was playing a really, really strong game and had to rely on Ozzy, who ultimately screwed himself over because he didn't play the idol. That's a move decision that he failed at. But he would have had Suri there to tell him what to do if they weren't split up. And so the idea that the second half, if not maybe the last third of the game, is all pivoted on a move that wasn't based on their decision on the island bothers me more so. If Suri, like Aubrey, has played over 100 days, has had an insane way to work herself up. Opposite of Aubrey, though, she has a huge reputation. Aubrey, I feel like, hasn't been given the flowers she deserves for what she has done on the island. Everyone knows Suri is a threat. She shouldn't have made it to the position she did, anyways. So she was the biggest contender to win. And while they're showing it now as a fault of Tiffany winning the idol, I feel like it's actually a fault of Ozzy not playing his, which is his fault, but she would have been there without the twist. So I really feel like the twist, in much shorter words, I think the twists have been screwing the season up more than the edit, and the edit is reflective of what they think is most interesting, which isn't always the correct objective.
I agree. I think that it's interesting kind of going into these tribals of how kind of in a way they were very predictable. There was not a lot of suspense this week. The first tribal was Rick Devens 100%. Sorry, James. Love ya. but that was could not have been more obvious. Rick knew it. Everyone on the jury knew it. Everyone at home probably knew it. Production was probably already setting up his hotel room. Like, I don't think it could have been more obvious. And sadly, since he already had his big Mr. Beast moment, I think it was so unlikely for him to have that shot in the dark hit. It would have been awesome television if everyone was scrambling. But I do think kind of what Abby was going back to of last week having the split really did set things up in perspective of how this week was going to work out. And I think that with Emily getting out and Ozzy going out, it put two really big targets on the two people who went out this week, and in a way that made it kind of impossible to get them off of it. I'm curious though what you guys think about Rizzo and Rizzo betraying his number one ally, Suri, and getting her out. Do we think that that was the smart thing to do? Do we think it kind of screwed up his chances of winning? What do you guys think?
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. I it's an old era way of playing, which is something that we haven't seen in a while, where you go with someone all the way and then you betray them at the moment that matters most. I thought it was the smartest thing he's done. Um, and if he were to make it to the final three, I think he still has an argument to be made that he made some good moves. He had really good relationships with people to last all the way through. Um, and yes, many people on the jury might find him annoying, but he really didn't betray a lot of the people on the jury except for one. But because Suri is so loved, will that be enough for the rest of the jury to be like, no, 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 you screwed over our girl here, so I'm not going to vote for you? You know, that's kind of where I'm at. Everyone knew that Suri was a threat. It was just kind of a matter of when they were going to toss her out. Um, but I don't know. I think it was right for Rizzo to do it, even though I wanted her to win. I wanted her to stay around. It's kind of you can't have someone that dangerous be in the final five. You just can't do it.
I think it's also the approach where I love Riz God. I've loved Riz God since day one, before we even saw his season. But one of the faults of his game style play is that they haven't. He knows that he's the only one that they haven't seen him play previously, so they're not aware that he's playing the same game in a way, and that game is strategically amazing for a first timer season, but for a returner season, he's playing a loyalty gotcha at the end game in a way where he's controlling narratives and kind of undermining his alliances in a way to get ahead. But you're doing that with people who already have built up relationships, and you're doing it in very mundane small ways. So that while that would be big for someone who's not used to playing strategic games, with him voting out Suri, I felt like he should have done it in a way where he thought about who he can win against, which I'm sure he did, but thought about it with the knowledge we have and deducted the right person being Aubrey. Used his idol to keep Suri for one game, use her to vote out anyone else he doesn't like, and then beat her in fire or vote her out in the final four, so that he's taking control of a move, whereas currently a lot of he hasn't had a solo move, everything has been supplemented by someone else. So unless he is in a perfect jury position where there are two people that they can't vote for, so they have to vote for his game, I think he has an uphill battle. And even with the current jury, or with the current players still left in the game, it would have to be like him, Joe, and Tiffany. And I think it would be neck and neck with him and Tiffany for him to win.
Yeah, is it Rizgod or is it Rizzo the Rat? Who knows? Who knows? Um, and yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up too, Abby, is like he hasn't been able to watch his season and like look back and think, about what people said about him, how they perceived him, how he perceived himself, being that outside character looking at yourself on TV. I feel like that does a lot to you, and I think that's the upper hand that everyone but him has. So it's interesting to watch that.
Yeah, it's interesting too because of the fact that it's like I agree. Everything Abby said, I think, is spot on, and I think it is a time and place situation, and it's a how you do your moves. And I don't know if he could have told her, "Hey, listen, I'm voting you. I can't beat you in the end," because maybe she then would have been like, "Hey, by the way, Aubrey wasn't the rat, Rizzo was," and it could have gotten back to him. But he had that idol, which he still didn't use, and he has now been able to 2 times in a row hold an idol for ransom and give him a spot in the final four, which is very impressive. Um, so good for him. But it is such an interesting idea of what to do in that situation, and they did give Rizzo a lot of the screen time on this move, and again, I think it was more Aubrey than Rizzo. And I also think at this it was always going to be between Aubrey and Rizzo or Aubrey and Suri of who was going to go home right now. And Aubrey had just done a better job of containing her threat.
I think that, but at the same time, based on how they're talking about each other and how they've talked about each other throughout the whole season, from what we've seen, Aubrey is kind of doing the opposite of Rizzo in the end game, where she recognizes that she has this huge history and she's finally starting to mention it. Granted, she might have mentioned it before and people would come in knowing she's been in a lot of seasons because they know Survivor better than the audience does, in theory. Um, but she's starting to amp up her threat level versus she knows she's coming in as a quieter name. If you asked someone like James, what do you know about Suri Field's game and what do you know about Aubrey's game? I feel like more people know Suri. While she's not a household name like Sandra or Tony, she's pretty close if she's not. Versus Aubrey has played very quiet games and is a legend within her strategy, but not necessarily as a character, where it's this larger than life, huge moves. So she's using that to her advantage. Versus someone like Rizzo used that quiet mundaneness in the beginning to get by as being like the annoying little brother personality type that people are getting used to. Whereas now I feel like he needs to transition from that and take control of the game and be like, no, I learned from these huge names in the beginning. I found their ways out, and now I'm the one in control, and this is actually my game, and I'm starting the next generation of Survivor type stuff. And he isn't doing that. He's just voting them out with the crowd. So they're using the same strategies in opposite ways, and Aubrey's is going to be successful, whereas I don't think Rizzo's will be, unfortunately.
Talking about the idol for a second, what happened to just going up to the person that you want to vote out and telling them that you're going to vote for them? What happened to that?
I
I
think
swear
it's
to
very
God.
sloppy though sometimes. I think it's very 50-50. You can't do it too early and you can't make it seem like by the way, I'm voting cuz that's kind of what Ozzy did with Aubrey. Granted, Ozzy did way too much and then told his entire gameplay. But the second
Right.
that Ozzy pretty much told Aubrey, "I'm voting you," she was like, "Okay, I know you're voting me. Now I'm going to do everything in my power to get the votes on you." And so there has to be a level, I think, of blindside in Survivor because, in a way, you can't give them that power. But I think that there's various ways to do a blindside that are tasteful and that are not tasteful. And like going back to our dumb Survivor game that we play here in LA, like I have blindsided Abby in a way that was not tasteful. That was like just kind of showboating and being like whatever. And in the end, she didn't vote for me because I didn't do the jury management I needed to do. Then there were times where like somebody blindsided another person, but it was received better because it wasn't like shady. And so I think that there's like a teetering line of how you can properly do that.
I guess all I'm saying is if you want Rizzo to flush his idol, say that you're going to vote him out. Get him flustered, make him feel paranoid for once in his gosh darn life on Survivor. And no one has made him feel that way, which is like, they're probably going to kick themselves now looking back at it and maybe thinking about it. But I'm just kind of like, that's the only thing I was thinking. I was like, why is no one making him feel paranoid? I don't understand. Um, I quickly want to talk about challenges very, very quickly. Um, One, Aubrey putting the freaking blocks in her mouth and walking up and down to try and spell immunity was probably my favorite part of the episode.
She's done that
Joe,
every time she's done that challenge, by the way.
and then
That is like
Tiffany
her
followed
signature.
suit. I
She always
love
puts it in
that.
her mouth.
Love it. She is a psychopath. I am for that. And then I love how Joe he looked like more of a dad, like putting it underneath his chin and like trying to do it or whatever. I thought that was awesome. And then we've seen people collaborate on challenges or like Rizzo completely cheat to try and do whatever. But I kind of loved how everyone was on the same page saying Tiffany is such a big threat. We have to figure out a way to get her out. And they couldn't spell. They could not spell. And that's what ended up having Tiffany win. But she did that like nobody's business. There was no way that anyone else was going to win. I think Aubrey had a point with saying like if I just like locked in on my own thing, then maybe I would have won. But the challenges were just cracking me up. It's too funny.
All right, well, with that, we come to the penultimate episode of Survivor and leave you with our memes of the week. All right, well, I can go first if y'all want.
I'm still like up in the
Mine,
air of what mine's gonna be.
mine is a duo. It's two memes for the price of one, guys. You're welcome. So the first one is a meme, and then the second one's the visual reference. But it's a video of RuPaul saying it's time for my break, and it says, "The hammock said."
I love that. It's time
Now,
for a break.
this one is then saying, "Sarit and Jonathan breaking the hammock is the chaotic energy we needed," and it is the video.
She's played 5 times, so I want to hear what she's thinking.
And then he's so serious. Oh my God, are you okay?
Oh my god, are you okay? Mother, you fell. I love that.
And then I just wanted to. I'm cheating. I'm so cheating. I have one more that I really wanted to show, based off of what Emily said and how we just talked about, and one of my favorite Tenafly alum. It says Jonathan and Joe looking at each other trying to spell the word inconceivable, and it is Leah Michelle. Okay, that's my time, ladies and gentlemen.
Stop it. Okay, Abby, you go.
Mine goes back to a personal favorite of an old Survivor legend. So in all caps, it's she always does everything right, but it's never enough. And it's our favorite Liz going.
Yeah. I love that one. That was so good. That was so good. Can you please show the one that you sent in our group chat that spoiled the episode for me? Because that was pretty good too.
Looking at my text at 4 a.m. Eastern time and it spoiling it was, I was like, Coral, what are we? But it was Stan Twitter watching Sarita get voted out of Survivor yet again. And it's Biden with, it was 15 9/11s.
I thought that was so good.
All right, Emily, round us out. Take us home.
It's definitely, again, I can't bounce back from my Clementine meme. But it says how I feel about Rizzo after he stabbed my mother in the back. And I think this is from, I don't know what this is from. Throwing the child into the fire. That is how I feel.
All right. Well, let us know how you guys feel about this episode in the comments below. And we will be back for the finale, the live finale of
Crazy.
Survivor 50. Make sure to vote for your favorite of the season. Who do you want to get the Sia money? I probably am voting Suri. Basic, but I think the rightful winner. She deserves some money. But let us know who you guys want, and we will be back to talk all things finale and talk about the winner. Probably Aubrey. Woo!
Abby's
All right,
gonna win
bye,
the
guys.
draft. Bye.